there, chipmunks! Welcome to the AMP Cycling Ride Review Series. I'm your host, Angry Chipmunk. I hope all you chipmunks out there had a good holiday break and were able to get out and do some riding for real. But if you weren't, we're back to start 2025 with style by doing a Stelvio. This is the pass from Borneo. This route is available on Rouvy, so let's get right to it. This is a climb-only route, so it's a rather short, just 20 kilometers long, but with a massive 1,449 meters of elevation gain. The whole ride averages just 7% and peaks at 15%. It's not one of the steeper climbs on offer by gradient, but all 20 kilometers of this route are positive gradient, making it pretty tough going. Surprisingly, there are no Strava segments included on Rouvy, but there are 20 on Strava itself. They range from small sections of the climb to the full climb. The smaller sections range from Cat 4 to Cat 2, and the larger segments over 10 kilometers are all HC climbs. For this review, I'll stick to the route as a whole. As mentioned, the entire route is positive gradient on this one, but it does mix it up with sections ranging from a very mild 1% up to the route max of 15%. There's not a lot of extended double digits here either. It, surprisingly, is mostly a steady 6 to 9%. So while the route is a bit longer, there is a lot of elevation gain, it's not actually all that bad. It's not until about 4 kilometers in that you see your first real respite of the ride. You'll get about 1 kilometer of nice mellow gradient before things get a bit weird. There's quite a few switchbacks in this one scattered throughout the ride, but they pretty much all have the same odd pattern. They mostly have a very steep start to the corner and then are comparatively very mellow out of the corner. It can go from over 10% down to 3 to 4 to 5% out of the corner. It's kind of a weird to ride, but if you know it's coming, it's a bit less of a struggle. Watch for them so you can maintain a nice and even pedaling throughout the corner. Now, the middle and end of this route are the toughest spots, and while the middle will have some sections of steeper gradient, it's still mostly again in that 6 to 9% range. So really watch for those lighter yellow and orange to help conserve your energy. This is going to help especially in the last 4 kilometers. This is an Italian climb, so what else can you expect except an unreasonably difficult last few kilometers? Just about when you get to the high altitude cows, you'll have a nice 1 kilometer or so of easy going before it gets tough to the finish. There is actually a Strava segment for this one. It is simply called Passo dello Stelvio. It's at the 15.5 kilometer mark, is about 4.5 kilometers long, with 367 meters of elevation gain, averaging 8% and maxing out at 14%. Strava considers this part to be a Cat 2 climb. Now I can hear all you chipmunks out there saying already, but Angry, this isn't that hard. We've just come from 15.5 kilometers of exactly the same climbing. Seemingly. But this section of the climb is really a two-parter. Once you pass the open boom gate, it gets significantly more difficult, with a good portion of the segment being over 10%. It will somehow also feel significantly more difficult in the last 2 kilometers than the starting kilometers. Maybe because it is at the end of the route and you're already tired? I don't know. Possibly because you've also just come from a very mellow section of the climb into a more difficult. Be sure not to push too hard on that flattish section, or it will make these last 4 kilometers seem far more difficult. Once you get to the summit, that is the end of the route. For difficult passes like this, I prefer to ascend at an easier pace than I could push, as I know I will likely tire somewhere around the middle of the route. I even prefer spinning a slightly harder gear to help keep my legs moving consistently, but slower overall. I find this really helps me to not tire as quickly. Of course, if spinning faster works better for you, then go for it. For this ride, you'll be needing a very good warm-up and cool-down. There is nowhere along the route to do either of these things, so you'll need to be ready to go immediately. Have a 15 minutes of easygoing warm-up, enough to stretch your legs and get ready to ride, but not so that you tire. However much cool-down you can muster at the end will be good. There's plenty of ways to cool down if you simply can't keep spinning the bike anymore, but try for at least 5 minutes. Pre-fueling this ride is a must. There is nowhere along the route that's really good for eating. I always recommend starting off with plenty of protein on board for a nice slow release of energy. For this and most mountain passes, I recommend fueling with smaller, faster acting carbs and versus bars or slower release carbs. I tend to find that bars are harder to eat on passes, so my preference is for things like gummies or fruit puree or even mini chocolate bars. Anything that isn't too difficult to chew. I would also say to have an electrolyte water on hand no matter the time of year you're doing this ride. A post-ride protein of some sort is a good idea here, as well as a magnesium. I would also recommend protein-heavy meals for the rest of the day to help keep you stabilized. The view here is beautiful as always. The sky was a bit overcast in this one, but that actually helps to bring out the colors of the mountains. It looks like it was summer when this was filmed, so everything is a really lush green in about 300 different shades. Not having it super sunny was actually preferable to me. The roads aren't super enclosed, but there was not really a lot of traffic either. And the high altitude cows were a massive highlight for me and really helped me get through those last few tough kilometers. I did this ride in a week of lots of big climbs, so I opted for a bit of an easier pace and finished the route in just under 2 hours on 100% difficulty emulation. With needing a very good warm-up and cool down, I would suggest to budget anywhere from 2.5 to 3.5 hours for it. It's definitely not a good choice for those with time restrictions. I would not suggest stopping and starting this one again either. It just doesn't have any section where you can easily be able to pick it up again at the same pace. Overall, this is a fantastic version of Stelvio, and I would definitely recommend it for the climbing enthusiast. It isn't the steepest or most difficult climb, but it's still tough. I wouldn't recommend this for a newer climber, but it could be an intermediate climb despite the elevation gain. The distance might be a bit longer, but overall, the gradients are lower. For this route, 5 of 5. Great route from Bormio. There's not a whole lot of traffic throughout, which gives it a nice immersive feel. The roads up the mountain have a nice mix of open and closed spaces, plus there's plenty of riding on the road to keep you entertained. For the climb, 5 of 5. It's not the hardest or steepest climb on offer, but it's still a solid 20 kilometers on it. The last 4 kilometers make this one pretty tough. For the view, 5 of 5. Mountains, cows, Italy, what else do you need? I really enjoyed the cloudier conditions on this ride. It really helped to bring out the colors of the mountains, and the high altitude cows were adorable. And overall, 5 of 5. Definitely put this one in your ride queue. It's still very tough, but could be done in a week with some other solid climbing efforts as well. If you're used to riding every day, you won't need too much planning for this one, but maybe don't back it up from Zoncolan like I did. Well, that's it for this review, so thanks for watching, Chipmunks. Please let me know what you think of this Stelvio Pass when you complete it. I'll leave you to finish the rest of the ride, and I'll see you in 2 weeks for another review. Until then, ride on, Chipmunks! Ride on.